Hey guys, Matt here again with another weekend video. This time I'm going to do the American prog band Kansas during their glory years and a bit past, from 74 to 83. I'm going to be using this classic albums collection, easily obtained on Amazon. That's where I got it. All the albums up through 83. And I'm not so crazy about the last three, but they're included in here, so I'm going to talk about them. All right, so Kansas is a band that was around when I was a kid in the 70s. They were one of those prog bands that, like Yes or Pink Floyd, especially Pink Floyd, that you heard on the radio. Tull at least, or Jethro Tull albums up through War Child all had like songs you could hear on the radio. Maybe not a Passion Play, but Kansas were one of those bands too, especially the 76 and 77 albums, which I'm going to get to. But then they continued to have hits into the 80s, which I'll discuss. This little set I just showed you is real good for 4, 8, 10 albums. I think it was less than $100. I don't remember now. I'm going to be using this little, because you guys know I always struggle to read the print on these booklets or these CDs. So I'm going to be, reading from here, just makes it easier. I prepared for this the other week, actually before I did my Buffalo Springfield video last week. I listened to all the Kansas albums in my car, leading up to that weekend, and I just did not do the show. I wanted to do the Springfield show instead, so now I'm going to do it this week. Kansas, 1974. This is a good album. Right away, they kind of set themselves apart from their prog brethren across the pond by putting violin in these songs, and sometimes having more earthy subject matter to sing about, like there's a J.J. Cale song, bringing back weed from Mexico. Not something that you would usually hear a prog band from England or Italy sing about. Then again, who knows what they're singing about in those Italian bands. The whole album's pretty good. There are no famous songs, but this is before Kerry Livgren was becoming a Christian. Although there's always a bit of that kind of hectoring tone, that's telling you how to live your life, even before he, was born again. Almost like you're listening to like a George Harrison song or something. But I like it. Kansas, 1974. Better, though, is a Song for America from 75. This is the first really good one, with, I think, the title track being like a Kansas classic. I like everything on here. Down the Road. Song for America is the next one. Lamplight Symphony, Lonely Street, Devil Game. They're always singing about the devil. But this is better than the first album, and this would be a good contender, for one of the better albums of 1975, although not top 10 in my estimation. You guys saw my 75 show, I hope. They also squeezed out, in the great tradition of 2 albums a year that certain bands used to have, Mosque, I think it's just Mask. This is probably, I'm going to say, their most underrated album. Again, no famous songs as good as their first album. Icarus is a really good song. Child of Innocence, Mysteries and Mayhem, The Pinnacle. There's bonus tracks too on all the CDs in the box set up to the live album, which ironically those are my favorite ones. The ones from Monolith on don't have bonus tracks, but it's solid. Not as good as I think Song for America, but good enough. And 2 albums in 1975. All right. Okay. 76 is, of course, Left Overture. This is their classic. This is, in most people's opinion, the best Kansas album. There are no weak tracks on here. It's, of course, got Carry On, Wayward Son, I'll just go over them all. The Wall, What's on My Mind, Miracles Out of Nowhere, Opus Insert, because the last song is called Magnum Opus. Questions of My Childhood, Cheyenne Anthem, and then, Magnum Opus. That's cut for cut, there's probably more great songs on this one than any other Kansas album. And Carry On Wayward Son is kind of like their roundabout. You know, it's like the big, great proggy hit song that everyone, you know, knows them or knew them for at that time anyway. 77, Point of No Return, No, K-N-O-W. Almost as good. I know some people feel this is the best Kansas album, you know, and that's fine. I mean, this 1-2, they never really bettered this 1-2 punch. Point of No Return was also played on the radio a lot. There's Paradox, The Spider, Portrait, He Knew. I used to hear that. He knew more than me and you. I used to hear that on the radio. Closet Chronicles, Lightning's Hand, Dust in the Wind. Of course, the immortal Dust in the Wind is their biggest hit, I think, right? Bigger than Carry On Wayward Son. Sparks of the Tempest, Nobody's Home, and Hopelessly Human. So, folks, these are the two best ones. These are the two best ones. All right. Carrying on that greatness, though, at least in this box set, is their live album, Two for the Show. Now, Two for the Show was originally, you know, a double album in the first place. At least I think it was. I didn't know the vinyl when I was a kid. But this CD, or two CDs, in this box set is expanded, and I love it. I think this is one of the great live prog albums of the 70s. I'm not going to go over all the songs. There's 13 songs on the first disc. There are 11 songs on the second disc. But pretty much any good Kansas song from 74, you know, through 77 is on here. All right? This is the last time they were fully progressive. And I had no problems with this. I hope I put this on my greatest live albums of all time show that I did some time back. So, and this endeth, in my estimation, their great era. Now, Monolith. Monolith came out in 79. I know Kansas fans who think that this is the last great Kansas album. The thing that I would say about that, I like that picture, is I don't hear any great songs on here. The whole thing is pretty good, but, you know, I gotta be honest and say that pretty good is not great. So maybe if this would have had, you know, some song that would have kind of broken through and you know, reached out into the greater rock consciousness. I was there. I remember. I was 14 years old in 79. I wanted there to be something on this album that was good. But, you know, it's not bad. And they're still relatively progressive, relatively prog. You can tell they're slightly going in a little more commercial direction, but not that it's distracting. And I gotta be honest too, a lot of prog bands were going in a more commercial direction by this point. Genesis, for instance, even though they didn't have an album in 79, and then there were three was in a more commercial direction. So Gentle Giant had totally gone, you know, commercial with their Giant for a Day album in 78, and they didn't do an album in 79 either. So anyways, I don't mind Monolith. I just don't hear it as being as good as its proponents would tell you. All right? Okay. Now we get to the 80s when the band was still selling records. I kind of like that cheesy cover, though, for some reason. It looks very early 80s to me. This is Audio Visions. It's not terrible. I mean, if you really like Monolith, this is just a bit more commercial. You know, Hold On, you know, was the hit. And, you know, it was nice to hear. They hadn't had a hit song on the radio since the Point of No Return year of 1977. But it was just different. I mean, prog, if you were a prog band in the 70s, and I've said this many times, you weren't going to survive long in the 80s sticking to that same sound. Look at Yes. Yes had Drama that year, which was I think that's a great album, but it didn't really sell in the way that and I like Drama more than I like Tomato. Anyways, Audio Visions was a disappointment, but it wasn't going to get any better. Vinyl Confessions, keep turning the page here, came out in 82, so there wasn't an album in 81. I think this is probably about the time. I mean, I don't really have my facts straight for this show. How many times do I do, right? But I think this is when Carrie became, born again, and then Steve Walsh he didn't really like that much. Now the hit on this one was "Play the Game," and I kind of like that one too. I mean, I remember these songs, these hit Kansas songs from when I was a kid, and I would have been in high school by this point. The rest of the album: Right Away, Fair Exchange, Chasing Shadows, Diamonds and Pearls, Face It. No, see, I don't remember. These songs don't really stick out to me. That's rather a dull album cover too. So I'm not going to say that Vinyl Confessions is any better than Audio Visions, although, I'm sure people who have listened to these albums more than I have would have a greater opinion. And the last one that we're going to do today is Drastic Measures, which has its own page, so I got to turn it. Fight Fire with Fire, I thought was a bigger hit than it actually was. When I looked it up, I don't think this made the top 40. I don't remember now. But I remember hearing that a lot. And the rest of the album sounds like it's tailor-made for, MTV or something. Only MTV didn't really play this too much. So they were trying, they were trying to make that transition into the 80s, but of course 1983 was the fourth year of the 80s, so if they were going to make that transition well, they would have done it by then. It's not terrible, as none of these albums are terrible, but they're just not what I want to hear, when I listen to Kansas. So anyways, the classic albums collection, 74 to 83, is my CD box set that I'm promoting. Not that I'm getting paid for this. For this show, any parting thoughts on Kansas? American prog never had the reputation that English prog did. So I noticed a lot of my British brethren, fellow prog heads, don't really have much time for Kansas. And, so there's a bit of that sneering kind of, oh, well, they're from over there, But they were a better band in their prime than I think non-believers want to give them credit for. And I still like them. So anyways, this is a short video. This is almost 13 minutes. This is Matt signing off. Until next time.